Welcome to Bubble Tea Time, where we spill the tea on last week's games and set the table for this week's. I'm your host, Adam, aka Digital Feeling, again joined by our analyst, Brian, aka Decadonu, Colin, aka Zoidberg MD, and Daniels, aka Dans. Welcome again, guys.
Hey, Adam. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, Dan's will be joining us via picture, and then Colin also has a corgi on his shoulder. So that's how we're going to start off the stream today. But we also have our special guest, Adam, aka Hugs and Unicorns. Welcome, Adam.
Thanks. Happy to be here, and hopefully my co-guests will join me in a bit, but no luck right now.
Did you give up on his last name there, Adam?
I absolutely did.
I mean,
Pretty rude.
Karabatakis.
I rather.
Yeah.
I got the name wrong last time, and I got called out, so I just didn't even make the attempt.
You went Adam, and then you thought about it, and you were like, "Nah, just Hugs and Unicorns."
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Sometimes you gotta bail in the midway.
Also known as OMG Smite King.
OMG, Smite King.
Oh.
Yeah, I just grabbed that username, so
Oh, you did?
yeah, pretty excited.
Nice.
Good. That's wonderful. Hopefully it'll end up coming in handy with the showcase for this week. Y'all haven't actually even played with the finals, and we've had so many games already, or playoffs, excuse me.
That's how playoffs be.
Yeah, man. We got 2 teams with buys, and looks like they're gonna get a second week of buys. And yeah.
So long. But let's go ahead and get into our match recap. Starting off with the Student Council versus Nutter Butter Scuttlers, with the Nutter Butter Scuttlers victory in the winners bracket. Very awesome game. Let's go ahead and start that clip.
This series was very back and forth, honestly. And this is a clip from Game 3. I think this was the only series that went to 3 games, right?
That's correct.
Correct.
Yeah, and honestly, shoutouts to the Student Council for their second game, coming back into it after a Game 1 loss and pushing it to silver scrapes.
Yeah, I mean, this was a pretty critical team fight. We had just gotten Baron, and we knew that they were going to rush it, and QE got caught out there for a second, and we were determined to redeem her. We felt like we could wipe pretty quickly with our AoE, and so we charged in 4v5.
As you can tell, it worked out super amazingly well for that. So the turnout was first game, Nutter Butter Scuttlers winning, then the Student Council, and then Nutter Butter Scuttlers for the third victory.
Was that from Game 3, that clip?
Yeah, that clip is Game 3. That's actually that's basically the series deciding fight right there.
Yeah, that was it was super close until that point, and then you guys kind of got away with it. Ran away with it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, all 3 games were really close. I felt all 3 games were winnable by both teams for the most part. Game 1 was a little bit more of a straightforward victory for us, but they were all still really close. Adam, how did you feel about the series?
Super rough. This is definitely a different Nutter Butter Scuttlers than we've seen in the early season. I think that they have finally reached not their apex, of course, but they're on the mountain, they're on the road, they're on getting up there. So we haven't even seen like the true potential, I don't think, which made them super competitive, taking down like the Student Council. I don't think is a small feat, especially because I think our team is pretty damn good, and especially after this week, we actually went in for 2 practice scrims because we lost that game as a reaction. So it's lots of respect on Not a Better Scuttlers for that.
Yeah, it was like I said, it was really close. It was really fun. You guys are a really good team, and we knew that going in. We were definitely not taking that for granted, and yeah, we were really happy to get away with a win.
It's really fun to watch.
That Galio game though.
Oh man.
Oh yeah,
Galio game
oh
the
yeah,
best
Ginny was
individual
insane.
game that was the best individual game of the playoffs so far.
Yeah.
God, you went nuts.
Yeah, Ginny played incredibly well. That was as the person lining up against her, that was annoying.
Yeah, I think she was probably TSC's like most and like the carry in game 2. She played super well, and like I think we'll be able to see that as well. They should like TSC looks really strong from that series. I think both top 4 teams. I think TSC should blitzkrieg a lot of.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was a pretty good matchup. I think TSC is going to run rampant in the lower bracket. So
that is the hope, and hopefully we'll see how the predictions turn out for this week as well. Our next game is going to be Panic in Our Oceans versus Deep Dive, with a Deep Dive win in the lower bracket, beginning the road to destiny, coming back, going from the bottom of the regular season to the finals and possibly the championship. Let's go ahead and roll that clip.
Oh man, this series honestly showed a new face for Deep Dive, with their solo laners stepping up to the plate and carrying games. Like between Wired and Aurochs, like they were just decimating Panic in Our Oceans.
yeah, and it freed up Jack Blindstone to like not get hard focused, and so you'll see like especially in this fight, like he's popping off. And it's because Wired and the other solo laners, like they were stepping up and being able to have their own pressure.
Yeah, I think we've been asking Deep Dive to show a different look. Try to like get their solos going, try to like change up the gameplay a little bit. And I think this series was really interesting because they didn't really do that in draft. They like kept their bread and butter draft. And I think like, from an outside perspective, you to the draft and you're like, oh, again. But I think like when the action through their game plans a lot different. Like Little Muffin just looked like he had more freedom. He was able to find, even though he didn't play for his top side at all, he kept playing for his top side. He found things in the mid lane. Wired created a lot of advantages by himself in mid lane, and then Aurochs did something spectacular in terms of like fending off ganks.
Yeah, you're cutting out some of the
I
stuff.
think you're muted on yours and you're coming through Elena's.
Elena.
No, I think it's fine.
No,
It's just
Elena's
him.
muted. I think this mic just sucked. Well, I'm talking pretty loud.
It's all good. We'll figure it out.
All the technical difficulties today.
We'll fight through it.
Yeah.
Yeah, how
They say
am
it's
I
fine
the only
now, I
one that's
guess.
actually okay?
They say it's fine now, I guess. But yeah, I think like we asked Deep Dive to show something different. I think they didn't really show much different in draft, but they played those drafts differently. And Aurochs honestly had like Aurochs and Wired both had the series of their lives. Same for Little Muffin. And I think like the top side like existed, and like in existing, their team is just a lot more complete. Like I think they actually have a good shot against a lot of the other teams now. We all counted them out, like Pio. And I think like they have like some beating signs of life. It could be like the legacy Deep Dive run through playoffs that we've seen twice now already. And you know, like I wouldn't put that past them. I think like the players are capable. Yeah, and I think like a lot of teams think they've had them figured out, but now that maybe they can play these drafts that look really straightforward, they can play them differently. Maybe it's harder. Like maybe it's instead of like, oh, this is what their draft is going to do, let's prepare for this. Like maybe they just play drafts, a little different angles, and it's harder to prepare for.
With the standout being Aurochs, Dance, can you comment a little bit about the 2 games, how they kind of broke out there for Aurochs, which is something we haven't seen this season?
Oh man, well, the dude was getting double kills off of ganks. He's like, in both of these games, I believe, and he was just a force to be reckoned with, like drawing all the pressure from the jungler and still managing to come off with a lead. Particularly the set was just a menace. He seemed to just say, this is my game, I'm carrying, get on my backpack.
Yeah.
Hugs and Unicorns. How do you feel about the jungle in this series?
Give me a sec.
Somebody's looking at numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really the thing I was focusing on in this series, to be honest. I think that I guess just off the top of my head, I watched the games and I don't really remember too much about it. So sorry.
No worries. I mean, if
Yeah,
it's
I
the
mean, I think it
standout
was.
is just top.
Yeah,
No,
I
I
mean,
think
to me, that's kind of what it was, right?
yeah, I think Lil Muffin Scott, my boy Scott over here, set the tone pretty early though. I think in two of the games he set the tone in both games he set the tone pretty early, getting off ganks and really setting it up to be not the Jack Limestone show. Because like if you get the rest of the lanes going, all of a sudden they have to respect a lot more. They can't just hard focus 5-man dive Limestone over and over and over again. And like, yeah, Aurochs did a fantastic job, especially in game, I think it was game 2 where he got the double kill on set with the gank. Lil Muffin really stepped up, I think, in both games and basically alleviated a lot of pressure in the other lanes as well.
That's a really good answer. I should have said that.
Well, let's go on to our last game, which is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks baby versus Executive Order, with the Milwaukee Bucks baby win with their new icon. Let's go ahead and get that clip rolling.
Oh,
It's an
the Angry Bucks.
It's an angry buck. It's because they finished 8th.
Yeah, and that's a nice engage.
Yeah.
I think honestly, the first game was really back and forth, and after winning it out, Milwaukee Bucks said, "All right, pedal to the metal. We're winning this one as fast as we can."
I just
Yeah.
want to raise awareness to the fact that Elena died in this game, preventing this from being the first perfect game in BTL history.
That is
Oh,
true.
But they MBB though just dominated the second game, took literally every dragon, every tower.
Yeah.
Didn't lose anything in return except for one Elena death. Good job.
Support lives matter.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean it was worth it. It was a really crushing defeat and like shows like MBB at their finest.
Yeah.
I do think that like that game for me was such a domination that I actually fell asleep at maybe like the 5-minute mark and I didn't even see that. It is what it is. If
Yeah.
your game is if you're gonna crush that hard,
Is this why Elena says our games are boring?
I don't know.
Well, see,
Yeah.
that's why I was excited about this game, right? Because if you'd asked me about the jungle performance in this game, I would have said C9 Meteos, the season's on the line, picks up Sejuani twice, gets like 30 assists a game. How much better can it get, right?
Yeah.
Not to take away from no, and maybe you should have. And not
maybe
to take away
that's the next form, That's like Super Saiyan level 2.
Not to take away from MBB bot lane, who I think really broke this series open. They started the first game like 4-0. Nick Mead did, and then I think they did really well the second game as well.
I think that we should call out Omar, OG Riga, for subbing in a playoff game, in a do or die playoff game, and pulling it out. Like he played really well as well for late notice. I think that was pretty late notice because it was an emergency sub, so he deserves some credit as well.
Let's hope Schweig get his computer fixed and
Yeah.
be back to his normal self.
Yeah.
The next series against who knows.
Yeah, but Omar's great, and he's a great sub if you guys need him.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to go into an elimination playoff game with a sub, but he really stepped
You
up.
could do worse. Yeah, you could do worse
Yeah.
than OG Riga.
Wonderful shout outs. Well, now that we're done with the recaps, let's go into our returning segment for the second week. Some Dan stats.
All right, so this week we want to highlight the losers bracket with Student Council versus Deep Dive, specifically the mid laners. And here we see the regular season Rascotrug versus regular season Wired, and these numbers seem to be in favor of Ginny, and notably the Galio, as we saw this last week.
Yeah, I like that.
Was a beast. But if we look at playoff stats, Wired actually is really ahead. Look at that KD8. I believe he only died once in that series. But Ginny is still no slouch with still a higher kill participation and damage per minute. And I think that Ginny's got her hands full with this one, but she might be able to actually push Wired more than he was in the last series.
Yeah, I do think like, I mean, this is really impressive. Obviously it's a size, and yeah, I just think like this is a Wired that we haven't seen in the regular season period. This was much better than any of his other games. On the other hand, I think Ginny's stats are actually in a series that they lost, through a 3-game series that they actually lost. Her KDA is impressive. She's a really high KP, and she actually pumped out a lot of damage playing a game on like Galio like that. So yeah, I think it's pretty interesting. Like her GPM is lower than Wired's, but she like outputs a ton of damage, as is like the Ginny secret. I do think this will be a pretty spicy lane and a really pivotal one for the actual like series between TSC and Deep Dive. I think Orox is the other wild card. Like the entire top side of Deep Dive is the big wild card, but I think Ginny has proven herself time and time again through like all of the games in the regular season and first playoff series that she's not to be trifled with, and she's really consistent. Not just doing her role, but potentially being a carry.
Not to mention, Wired's lower kill participation does come off of Tim being a beast in top lane.
Adam, who do you have favored for this particular matchup if you had them in a bubble?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it'll be more a question of how they can help their team the most, right? Because neither of them have been playing like assassin mid laners or anything like that. I mean, Wire did get a couple solo kills, I think, in his series, but I mean, it'll be sort of like relatively safe mid laner into relatively safe mid laner. So, you know, I think, like Brian was saying, Rascotrug's been popping off pretty well. She had some insane synergy with Man Puppet in their win. So, you know, maybe it's a mid jungle synergy question.
Should be interesting. But let's go ahead and get into our predictions and dive a little bit deeper to the overall team play. With a total believing in the student council from the analyst. Colin, how about we start with you? What gives the student council a edge over Deep Dive, who just came off of a 2-0 victory?
Yeah, so the student council is the only team to take a game off of Nutter Butter Scudlers with their full lineup. So I think they're a really strong team. I think they have really good communication. I think they play the map really well. Yeah, I just think I don't think there's really too many weaknesses to take advantage of. You in particular have stepped up pretty hard this season. And has made the bot pretty formidable, which I think before the season started could have been seen as a weakness, but not so much anymore. I think you guys are a really, really strong team, and that's why I voted for you.
I would have to agree with Colin in terms of the map play. Particularly mid jungle are very much in sync when they're making their plays. And if you see one of them, the other one's not that far behind.
Yeah.
Can we give someone like to dive in for Deep Dive? I don't think it's going to be that big of a disparity, especially given this predictions, especially Deep Dive being, I think, on the track for prophecy.
I can play the devil's advocate. So, I mean, I think Arax, you know, he did super well in top lane last series against a very good top laner. And that's sort of, you know, what they're going to see this week, right? The student council has a really good top lane. They have, good ganks. Well, I think that if he can do what he did last week, they have a really good chance of making the upset happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Nathan or Drop Up Air in the last series against Deep Dive, where Deep Dive dominated Pio. He was pretty boomer bust. Like he went for some solo kills, had some funny little deaths and stuff like that. Got some solo kills, got solo killed. Like it was a volatile lane state, and Plo honestly is a volatile laner. In their series against MBS, Plo didn't look super hot. He had some really big moments where he got like solos on Will, and then other moments where he lost a ton of lane pressure. Will got to run all over the map on him. Solos, like it was a really up and down series, and I think that's pretty reminiscent of what they found against Pio. And not only that, but like, like Pio's top jungler went and tried to help Nathan a decent amount, like and got solo killed back in return. I guess the 1v2s by Aurochs, and like I don't think that is going to be that really different playing against TSC. So I think like, it'll be like interesting to watch that matchup in general. If Tim can keep on his descent, keep playing weak side, and make sure that he can not only like stand up to the pressure but exceed it and form and like do really hot team fights, I think P5 has a good chance. Wired deal, like don't let Ginny get all over the map. Like there's a lot of like things here that are like question marks for Deep Dive now. I think like if there's anything that says, hey, like I could play devil's advocate, it's like that sense of mystery. Like we haven't seen Deep Dive have a functioning topside before playoffs. Period. Really. So now that they do, like cards, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. I'm still going to lean towards the student council, but like Deep Dive really showed up. They played really, really well. And if they can alleviate that pressure off Limestone, that's going to, if that continues throughout the playoffs, then they have a really good chance of going far.
Yeah, it should be a very exciting series. Along with our next matchup, which is the Good Boys versus Second Breakfast, with Dance being the only person choosing just Second Breakfast, despite in the regular season, Second Breakfast actually defeating the Good Boys. Dance looks.
So I'm gonna get called out by our viewers for flopping, and honestly, I think it comes down to practice and whether or not these teams are practicing. I think Second Breakfast is seen online a lot more, and they are more willing to put in the time to be ready for a series. But then again, Good Boys do look very threatening. And the other part is our intern Mayo would nag me if I never voted for his team.
That seems fair.
I thought it was the not Mayo Misa vote, but I guess not.
No, apparently.
No,
brother.
Visa's not vocal. Mayo
Mayo
is extremely vocal.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think I definitely think Second Breakfast has a chance to win this. This is more what I think is going to happen. I think it's pretty close. Like I would probably say it's 45-55. Honestly, I think both teams are pretty even. Both teams have really big pop-off potential. One with their top laner Steven Kirasaki Ace, and one with Barrock Misa in the jungle. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see if that regular season game was a fluke, because like I don't necessarily think it was a fluke, but I do think that it was a preventable loss. I think they went into it a little bit unprepared. So it'd be really interesting to see if the Good Boys come in a bit more prepared and are ready, and I think they will, which is why I picked them. But I think they need to come in more prepared.
I actually think it's like a little disingenuous to even say that Nisa is like their pop off player, because honestly, Mayo has been popping off a lot too. In that game against GB, flat out, Mayo outplayed Steven in every point of the game, every single one. Outlaned him, out team fought him, outsplit him on map. Just was better. And I think like that's huge, because like there wasn't a ton of jungle involvement either way in that series, in that game, and Mayo just had his number. And I think like if that happens, GB has no chance. If Mayo plays at that level and Steven can't play at that level as well or higher, don't think that GB can have a shot in this series. My vote for GB stems on the idea that that Steven is going to play at a high level, at that level, and access that part of his brain that he needs to like perform there. And if he can perform there, I do think that GB has a lot of versatility in their drafts. Has holes, but not as glaring as like the holes. Yeah, but I think like if we're talking about these teams, like, you know, man, it is really close. Like I don't even know if it's 55-45. Like maybe it's just straight up 50-50 and I clip to get
Yeah.
GB. But I actually think it's a lot closer than a lot of people think. I think a lot of that is Misa is kind of for me like a known quantity. Like I think he will do pretty well. He's been a couple weeks, but Mayo is not. Like if Mayo can play like the Mayo that showed up in the last match, GB and SB, then I think SB. But if he can't, GB.
Male playoff buff
Yeah,
incoming.
Mayo. Yeah,
we've seen it once.
I also think that part of it comes down to what happens in pick ban, because second breakfast solo laners, I mean, they got their total comfort picks in that game and they popped off. So
Right.
you know, was it disrespect, or was it just that they were looking for something else in it? So I'll be interested to see, you know, did they get Renekton and Ari again? Did they pop off again with it, or are those going to be banned out?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to say that because like in that game, like yeah, they definitely got like Renekton, which is like their bread and butter. But like there comes a point where everybody on that team has so many comfort picks that you're like, wait, we can't ban all these comfort picks out because they banned GB banned in the first round Kane, Kindred, Orianna. Orianna is a big nitpick, like on par with his Ari. Kane, Kindred are Misa like comfort picked pocket picks. He ended up picking Vi in the second round and still popped up. And I think like there comes a point where you're like, wait, so we have to get rid of Renekton, we have to get rid of like Orianna, Ari, Kane, Kindred, like
There's too many comfort picks across.
Yeah,
the
and
board.
that's when you have to start banning towards your comp. Like you have to start banning. You have to know what you're going to play before you go into the game and ban accordingly.
Right.
Like, if there's too many champions to ban out because the team is too comfortable and too many, like you have to have a game plan going in.
I agree, and I think a lot of that is like representative. Like when people draft against like certain things, like for instance, when we drafted against like Deep Dive, like we didn't even consider for a second banning because like it wouldn't have played well into our comp, and when we played into it, it didn't play well into our comp. I think comfort picks is one thing, but thinking, hey, like which comfort picks are we willing to let through because comp is designed to deal with them? That's how they should structure that pick ban. Don't just ban all this random stuff that they play. Ban the stuff that they play that gives you problems. Everything else that you can deal with, deal with it. Build a team that counts for those possibilities.
With that, we got our predictions, and we're gonna actually go ahead and go into some Twitch questions. Thank you all so much for submitting. If you have any more, and we have time, we'll answer a couple. But our first question is from Wired. Predictions on who will be in the finals at this point.
I think it's gonna be Deep Dive over THD.
There you go.
Wait,
do we give? Are we allowed to say our own teams?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I'm gonna say my own team versus THD. I think MBS versus THD. I mean, this is the thing though, like, right? Like, because we're all just gonna pick our own team versus.
I mean,
versus but versus who, right?
Every week.
Yeah.
Like I imagine that maybe Decadonu Dan's is maybe a little different from HugNUnicorns and what they think is who's going to be their opponent.
I would say it's either Student Council or Deep Dive who's going to make the gauntlet run.
I mean, I think we're gonna hit. I think in finals we're gonna hit like right now. I think NBS, but maybe I could see AR or TSC being there too.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a lot of respect for MBS, especially with AR still technically being the first seed.
Yeah, I just don't think they're as like dynamic as NBS is. I mean, they're a solid team. Like, you know, maybe that like steady play style get them away. But I don't know. I think I personally favor NBS to be able to like make proactive moves on the map and like create things. I think that, you know, they're I don't know. I mean, honestly, NBS and AR are like actually relatively similar. I don't think either of their junglers have been like super impactful in the early game. Especially late season for Sopa, but then like later the game goes, like they get bigger and bigger. And it's a little bit different from Misa or something that were Adam and our team who like tend to make their biggest marks game onset. But I still think like both of them are strong teams, even if they have styles. I think like the tools that NBS has though, and the tools that they draft are just better, creating proactive action. But I do think like all those top three, like NBS, TSC, AR, or thus, I do think that they're all like not super proactive though, and I think that the team that we see like when playoffs go through, like that I see like proactivity from, I'm gonna be like, all right, that's because I think like a lot of other teams coming into it, like THG, will be shoring up mistakes. Teams like those three that essentially thrive on mistakes. I don't know if that's like a sustainable play style. First team that is like they can really like create their own on map, like that's. But I think NBS is likely to do that. TSC, but we'll see.
We have another question. This is from Tim with Steven, aka Kawasaki Ace, hopping between mid and top. What do you think a lot of the in-game action will occur map-wise in regards to second breakfast and the good boys?
I think Steven's going to go back top lane again. He wants his rematch against Mayo. I don't see him giving Mayo an easier matchup because Mayo loves to do the 1v1s. He loves to fight in lane. And I think Steven knows that he has the potential to actually beat him.
I think the question is a little misguided because I don't care where Steven goes if I'm SB or if I'm a viewer. I think that the action happens wherever.
Yep.
Like the game plan revolves around. He in multiple series in the regular season series, he bailed out Nick in the mid lane with like really timely ganks. And like Mayo, like it's not necessarily action that happens around Mayo. Sometimes it is. Like maybe it's like a. But honestly, like if he's playing his champions that he's coming, he's gonna do something, and he's gonna like he's like ass up. But like I think Misa is the real focus here, and like wherever Misa decides to play is. I don't know. I think like depends on how the draft goes, but I can see a world where Misa just spot a lot. We saw Vise doing it. So in all the series we saw, the DS series, CSC, we saw Vise chain game the bot lane. I can see Misa. Or maybe he will be like, hey, I'm gonna get. I think like it's really on what Misa wants to do that will determine where all the action.
Hard agree.
I am curious, and this is maybe a hope to see the support be put on someone who can draw a little bit of pressure for second breakfast and make sure it's not just in mid and top side. I'm very curious to see that. But let's go on to our next question, and this is a question for the analyst given to us from Adam. Now that the regular season is over, which champs do you think have the highest and lowest relative presence compared to the LCS?
Wait, can I get? I'm gonna get highest first.
All right, so my hint for highest, where BTL is higher than LCS, is that they're all viable junglers.
Really?
Yeah,
Vi.
the top five.
Vi.
No, Vi
Vi
is not the
Opal.
top five. And I see how you would think that, but no.
Vi Opal.
All right, so Zach.
If I was Zach is one of them. Zach's number 2.
Sejuani.
Sejuani's number 3.
Yeah.
Kane.
Kane's number 4.
Jarvan?
No. The Morgana is number 1. And
Wait,
Jax
you said
is number 5.
Oh, you trolled me. I was gonna guess Morgana.
I just played it today to get into my promos.
Wait,
Yeah.
what was
Oh
number,
my
what was
God.
number 5? Sorry.
Jax.
Jax. Okay.
Okay. Now the lowest.
All right, and my hint for the lowest is that these 5 together, like you can put one in each lane. They make an okay team. Well, I don't know if they make an okay team, but
I know one of them was set.
Yep, one of them set. It's number 4.
Let's see. 80 carries. It's not Senna.
This 80 carry was never seen in pick ban in BTL.
Never
is-
seen him pick ban in BTL.
Callista.
Callista.
Callista. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay.
Mm.
Ooh,
All right. So we have top lane and
AD carry.
Okay.
Yeah. And
Uh,
jungle. Oh, no,
oh,
sorry. The set would have been the top in this case.
Yeah. So that's top.
let's see.
Jungle. Jungle's got to be like. My guess would be like Lee Sin or Nidalee.
No, just because I think they might not have high enough pick ban in LCS.
No. Okay.
I would have gone
Um,
Nidalee. Nidalee's a really good call, actually.
Bard.
Nidalee's only seen in like 25% of LCS games, apparently. The
Hmm.
answer is Graves,
Great.
Duh,
who
yeah.
was also had like really basically no presence in BTL.
Mhm.
I call Graves AD Nidalee for the record. I think I was like half right.
There you go.
Fine.
Oh,
And then to wrap it up, the mid laner is Twisted Fate,
Mhm.
who is very rarely seen, and the support is Karma.
Karma.
Wonderful, Adam. What a good bit of information. A little bit of different from the LCS.
Yeah.
I think we've mentioned this before on stream. Is the difference in the choices of champions is just player level. TF being a lot higher requirements to it. I think Graves also a little bit higher requirements for this particular season. Karma as well. Actually, just everyone. I think everyone that you mentioned has a little bit higher. You can't just like play into them. You have to have a comp that's ready to accept them into it.
I think Set is still the most
I'm
likely one that we
surprised.
play.
I'm surprised it's that, honestly.
I'm actually surprised now that I'm thinking about it. Set's just not played more in BTL.
Yeah.
It's a nice flex. I think a lot of people play it.
I don't think it's as flex along the roster.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and like things like Azir and Syndra are also up there, going along with your skill level comment. Morgana is just, I think she is, she sees some maybe interest in LCS, but I mean it's insane. She see like 94% pick ban participation in BTL.
Yeah.
I believe that.
It is a highly prized champion.
It was the same thing last season.
Yep.
It was really high last season as well.
Yep.
Is
Well,
it
Kate's-
just?
I mean, Kate's a meta ADC, and that helps a lot because Kate Morgana's a strong lane.
play a lot of
Brian has
tanks.
thoughts. Yeah, people play a lot of tanks.
Like you're playing like Leona, then
Yeah,
Yeah.
Black Shield OP.
Yeah, I do think though, like I do think we overrepresent Morgana in terms. I don't think Morgana's a good lane, to be honest.
Mhm.
I don't think that a lot of like the team play into Morgana. Or
Yeah.
So like I don't know. I think it's an interesting pick. And it makes sense like why everybody's picking. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's something that teams should think about. Like if they've been playing Morgana a ton, to the rationale, like protect their ADC from PC, is it try to pick? And are there other champions that could do that as well?
Better, yeah. Let's go ahead and go on to our bracket, and I'll kind of explain what's going on here. So we have the student council diving down to W1, which is in that second bracket. Good Boys and Second Breakfast have not played yet. We have PIO being knocked out by Deep Dive. Deep Dive moving to W1, which is at the bottom. And then we have Milwaukee Bucks Baby knocking out XO. And they still don't have an opponent yet because Good Boys versus Student
Second breakfast.
or second, Good Boys versus Second Breakfast. Still not having the matchup, so it's really a toss up a lot for next week, and everything's really riding on what happens with this game. So I highly encourage people to tune in and see how that goes.
Yeah, two matchups waiting on bated breath, right? We're trying to figure out who we're trying to play. AR trying to figure out who they're gonna play.
Yeah.
Everybody, we're
It's
all
gonna be
just
exciting to see who AR decides to pick, given what happens in A2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We'll probably have enough time to be able to guess which team they're going to pick as well, and that will be exciting. Let's go ahead and go on to our schedule. which we only have 2 games scheduled for this coming week, which is a Student Council versus Deep Dive on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Pacific, and on Wednesday we have Second Breakfast versus the Good Boys at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. A little bit earlier game than usual, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. It's important for a series.
Giving some time for the best of 3. It gets really late for those coasts.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's. I like Adam's idea. Who do we think AR is gonna pick?
Let's assume. Well, go first. Let's assume GB wins. Who does AR?
I
I
think
think they're scarred from losing GB.
I think if GB
Yes.
wins, they pick MBS.
I
Yeah.
agree. That seems
Yeah.
like the obvious choice.
And if
And then
SB win?
And if SB wins, I think they pick SB. That's what I think happens.
Yeah, I'd agree with both of those.
But we'll see. I'm excited. I just want to know who I'm playing.
How do you think AR matches up against, say, the 2 teams they could play, SB, or 3 teams they could play, NBS, SB, GB?
I think the disparity
the favorite?
between SB versus AR is massive, right? Like at least that's what it feels to me.
So
I think
here's
in the
the
past it
thing.
was.
I don't want to give. This is so hard because like I have personal feelings about this, but that could also affect them picking
Your
my team.
judgment.
But like, screw it. Entertainment's more important. I think SB matches up with them real well. Because I think they, out of the 3 teams that we're discussing, I think SB is the most proactive, and they have the strongest jungler of the 3 teams, which means that they're more willing to make things happen around the map, which AR is a very steady team, and they kind of just wait for mistakes, and I think SB has the ability to be the least mistake prone out of the 3 teams.
Well,
Wow.
you just
I
called
think-
out your own
Whoa.
jungler.
Well, I don't know about that. I think SB is the most mistake prone out of the 3 teams, but I do think that Misa's proactivity could be the wild card there. I agree that I think as the season's gone on, Sopa has looked fine, but hasn't looked as dominant as he was at the start. And then Misa's the other way around. He looked okay at the start. Now he looks like super. Like if he wins this series with GB, going Supernova, and use that into the AR series, that could be AR. So I don't know. I do think it is a little bit of a wild card now, and I don't think it's as clear as I thought it would have been at week 3 or.
For the record, I also think that MBS matches up really well against AR. But that's like, I'm obviously going to think that. But I do think we match up well against AR. I think their best matchup is GB.
And with that, I want to go ahead and thank you all the viewers for coming and joining us. I want to thank Brian, Colin, and Daniel for again joining us on the analyst desk.
Of course.
Yeah, of course, man. Here every week.
And then I also want to special thanks for Adam for not only contributing but also giving us some wonderful info and being prepared with some things that I had no clue about.
I mean, we wouldn't have stats without him.
There you go.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
He's the stat man.
He is the stat man. Well, thank you all again. Viewers, you can always submit questions to Twitch. Please go ahead and be prepared for the matches for this week. They should be exciting. They're going to change the face of how the playoffs are going to work. And we'll see you on the Rift.
Thanks for my skin, Adam.
God damn it.